Hello 101. That's right. We are back. It is back to your weekly update, back to all things 101 in composition. And while we are into week 12, you're going to find that we are quickly barreling down the home stretch of the last 4 weeks of the course. Things are going to move pretty fast from here. They always do, right? I'm reminded of the three soldiers that go parachuting, and they're all kind of a bit of braggadocious dudes. And the one guy tells the other two, "Hey, let's see who can wait the longest before pulling their chute." And one guy's like, "Yeah, I got this." The other guy's like, "No, I got this. You hold my beer." And so all three go up and they get in the plane, fly up about 10,000 feet, and jump out. And they begin plummeting towards the earth at an incredible rate of speed, at which point they do reach an average rate. That's physics, never mind. They're plummeting towards the earth, and the first guy begins to get a little nervous. At about 8,000 feet, he decides, this is close enough. And he pulls the chute, and away he goes. The other two continue to fall, and the second one, the third one begin challenging each other. You pull, no, you pull, no, you pull, no, you pull. Good dude debate. And then finally, the second guy's like, "This is nuts. I'm out of here." He's about 5,000 feet, rips the chute, and they pull. The last guy, he's clearly won, but he's still falling, right? Much as machismo can be. The other two begin yelling at him, "Hey, idiot, you won. Pull the chute, pull the chute." Nah, man, it's fine. I only got about 10 feet left. I can jump from here." That's kind of the last 4 weeks. Hopefully you took some of Todd Snyder's advice, originally the Beatles' advice, and enjoyed yourself last week. A little bit of self-care is important, but now it's time for that home stretch. I don't have a really good way to segue from that except to jump right into it. So let's take a look at kind of where we go in the remainder of the course. And that is towards your last assignment, an original argument of yours about some issue that you find compelling, interesting, worthwhile, have some sense of advocacy for. Who knows what that will be? This week I'm making you read an argument of advocacy and opinion about music festivals, and a little bit of a throwback nostalgia since we don't have music festivals right now, or at least very limited. Maybe this is a way to actually think about it before you go to the next one, see where you go. A bunch of good ones out there, a bunch of big ones too. So give a look at the week's assignments, and we'll meet back on the other side and talk about where we're headed.
There we go. Hopefully you moved out of this and followed some of the advice. Time moves pretty quick, kind of Ferris Bueller-like. If you don't stop and enjoy yourself once in a while, you'll be dead before you know it. So yay, Monday. Okay, week 12, April 5th. Here's what you got. We are going to begin building towards, and while these aren't available to you yet, you can see them here. We are going to begin building towards writing your own argument from observation. What is that particularly? Think of it like an opinion editorial with sources. So, during the course of week 12, as well as week 13, and perhaps in week 14, you'll be reading at least one each week example of an argument from observation, in which the author takes a look at a given example of some facet of culture and or science and or their interest, and begins to write an argument and advocate for an outcome based on the subject. For example, let's look at the one for this week, Della Strati. Cody Della Strati writes an article entitled "Commercializing the Counterculture, How the Summer Music Festival Went Mainstream." Right? Then I've given you 3 questions here that sort of break down the work that Della Strati is doing in this argument from observation. There are sources being used in here. There are references being made in here. There is research that has gone into being able to write this. He doesn't just flat out purge this onto the page in some sort of long-winded op-ed, but actually has done some reading and some interviewing and some experience himself, right? He's been to some of these festivals. It's a pretty interesting read, and in light of our lack of summer music festival last summer, perhaps it'll give you the itch to try and go out and attend a few this summer, provided we're all vaccinated and reasonably well distanced and safe. Kind of a little bit of nostalgia for a summer that just didn't happen, right? Anyway, it's an argument from observation about how counterculture has sort of optimized the summer music festival, right? As a way to sort of help explain what this is, I've also attached this little YouTube here. And what it discusses is what's referred to as cultural hegemony. Cultural hegemony is a cultural theory of structural power that deals in ownership and control. Now, don't mistake this for some sort of Milton Berns, that's the bad guy in The Simpsons, wringing his hands and plotting from behind the curtain. The idea is very simply that the dominant power structure will always absolve and repurpose and refashion those that strived against it, and will actually sell it back to you, aka Hot Topics in the mall, right? What once used to be punk is now cool, easy, and $24 at the local Hot Topics. It's that kind of idea. We're going to apply this theory to the idea of, in Delastrati's article, musical festival, right? There's a cultural hegemony that has sort of absorbed the counterculture music fest and resells it back to you, and you get a la, you can read all about it. Basically, they burned the place down, recognizing that it was just such a corporate, shoddy attempt at recapturing what was once an original countercultural movement. They just figured, hey, it'll make a big bang for your buck. And it did. So this little short video sort of explains what cultural hegemony is and how it's operating, right? And then, with your understanding of that, the discussion that Delastrati provides about counterculture, and music festivals perhaps will make a little bit more sense. There's nothing to do with this per se, except to give it a watch, maybe learn a little bit about Gramsci and cultural hegemony, and then go ahead and engage with the Delastrati reading. The only other assignment for the week is They Say, I Say, Chapter 9. I'd ask you to give you a read in Chapter 9, which discusses academic voice. And as we take these perhaps non-academic subjects like music festivals and push them into an academic venue, like an analysis of its cultural hegemony, then oftentimes what follows is an overly complicated wording or overly complicated sense of academic formality, right? Chapter 9 in They Say, I Say says, don't do that. Instead, use the voice most appropriate to your audience. In this case, pretend your audience is both your peers as well as your professors. So yes, there is some sort of elevated sense of style, but no, it does not need to be read like, or does not need to read like a full scholarly journal article. That is not the intent here, right? Instead, Chapter 9 asks you some specific questions, which you can give answers to, regarding what is and is not necessary in academic writing and keeping your own voice. Both of which I think will be helpful to you as we move towards our final last paper in the last 2 weeks of the course, right? The idea of how I make an argument from observation and how I do it in a voice that is both reasonably informed and elevated and yet still me. Okay, does it.
There you have it. What the Theory, which is just an explanation of cultural hegemony, which is really, there's nothing to do with it except to watch it and try to begin to grasp what it is that he's saying, because that's kind of the premise for the argument from observation that you'll read this week, Cody Delastrati's Commercializing the Counterculture. Fairly interesting, a little bit dated perhaps, sure, but no less appropriate. And then that's also a good example of the kind of thing that you can do for your original argument from observation. It does not have to be constrained to something innately academic, right? You're not going to solve the great debate of bioengineering and ethics in this last paper. That's not the goal. Instead, it's intended to find something much more localized about which you can have some sort of informed opinion, right? So hopefully you are all well rested and relaxed and ready to go. And as abrupt as the transition is out of a break back into the world, so must we make it, right? It's a good example is the abrupt transition to this. What do you get when you cross a cow and a duck? Milk and quackers. Talk about your non sequiturs. That was a good one. Let me know if I can be of help. Have a good week.